My name is Jason Montana. I retired out of the military back in 2012 as an E6, a staff sergeant. I joined when I was a kid, fresh out of high school, back in 1989. Shipped off to basic and spent 10 years on active duty. First part of that, I was a combat engineer, which is kind of construction work, a lot of building bridges and roads, blowing them up, running construction equipment, stuff like that. Most of my time was spent in what's called a C truck, which is basically a pickup that has a loader on the front and a backhoe on the back. It's actually pretty cool. Then I became a generator mechanic towards the second half of those 10 years, and I liked that. It was all right. I liked being a mechanic. I learned a lot of good stuff about diesel engines, stuff like that. Then I had a small break in service and came up to Minnesota and joined the Minnesota National Guard, where I spent the rest of my career. I did part of that as an M1 Abrams tanker, and then as a scout, and loved every bit of being a part of the Red Bulls. They're a fantastic organization, probably the best part of my whole career, to be honest. I ended up getting deployed a few times during that stretch. I went to Panama when I was a young man, still on active duty. Then when I came into the Guards, we went to the Balkans, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and then Iraq. We were part of the group that got extended. We ended up being over there for 22 months, 03 to 05, and then again in 2011 to 12, which then I came home, got out, and retired out. And now I farm. One of the, I guess, biggest moments as far as like combat or PTSD related type incidents that happened for me was I guess a plane crash that we were involved in. I talked a little bit about this on a Homeward trip with the guys and shared with them. And anyway, we never really found out what exactly happened, at least not at my level anyway. But for some reason, a Turkish airplane missed the airbase completely, not just the runway or the airstrip, but just right outside the base, pretty much like a yard dart, hit the ground for some reason. And 34 passengers on board. I believe there was 2 American and the rest were all Turkish soldiers. And I think there was even a few civilians, if I remember right. Not that that matters. Of course, nobody survived the crash. Some people were still alive when we rolled up on the scene, but nobody lasted long after that. It was probably the most graphic, horrific thing that any of us had ever seen or smelled. It kind of hit all the senses because of where we were, what we were doing, trying to pull security while trying to care for the people that were still alive, trying to ease their pain as they died, basically, because they were, their bodies were on fire, screaming. We were trying to put them out and collect up and protect what was left of them and the plane from the locals and looters, and as well as protecting ourselves from anyone that might come along looking to deal with the first people on scene. And it was just kind of one of the most, it was like something out of a scary movie for the most part. And it really messed with every one of us in a different way, depending on what we were doing on scene, because we had guys that were pulling security, sitting on the machine guns, when we had guys on ground actually trying to provide medical care to the victims of the plane crash after we got all the fires out. And you can't even hardly touch the bodies because they're so badly burned that they just crumble in your hands. And it was just one of the worst things I've ever seen or smelt or been a part of. And for the longest time when I came home, I couldn't even be around any kind of fire, not even a campfire, because it always reminded me of that smell. And it would literally make me nauseous every time I smelled it. So anyway, I guess that was probably one of the worst incidents that we ever had to deal with. Even though it wasn't actual combat, guns on guns, it was still pretty nasty and pretty bad. And most of our guys were so young at the time. It's kind of weird when you think about it, but at 30, 40 years old, you're kind of considered the old timer in the group in the military. And most of your guys are 18 to 25, and then they're seeing things that most men should never have to deal with or see. And then they got to figure out how to deal with that when they get home. And through all of that, we managed to pull through all right. I was fortunate, unlike a lot of guys. I never lost anyone in combat myself. All the people I went over with, all the people I served with directly, they all came home with me. We never had to send anyone home in a bag or anything like that. We were very blessed in that sense. The Lord looked after us, even if we didn't realize that's what was happening. We had plenty of opportunities where guys could have died, there's no question. And guys from other units within the Red Bulls did die, but all of us, we went over together, multiple deployments, the extended deployment, the plane crash, other incidents, rolling through villages, searching houses, pulling security on the bases, and we all managed to come home in one piece for the most part, which was pretty amazing. We did have a couple of injuries. One of our guys even actually managed to pull off 2 Purple Hearts before he was like 25 or something like that, if I remember right. So it's not that we didn't see anything or ever have anything happen to us. We definitely saw our share. Had a few trucks blown up, had a few rounds thrown at us, but we were always very blessed in that we all came home every day or back to base every day. So, but then when you get home, you gotta figure out how to deal with all that stuff. And I don't know, it seems like that's the toughest part for everybody, and it doesn't matter. We've got guys that stay on base when you go overseas and be deployed that struggle just as bad as the guys that go outside the wire. And I'm not a shrink. I don't have a college degree. I don't know why any of that is. The brain is too complex for me to figure out or even pretend I understand. But I do know this: we've all got different breaking points. We've all got different things that we can and can't cope with, and how we deal with that is also just as different. And we've lost several of our guys to suicide over the years, just since I got out in 2012, and that just breaks my heart. A young guy, old guy, it don't matter. You go overseas, you deploy for your country, you fight and serve in combat for your country, and you see all kinds of horrific stuff and survive it. And then you come home and you don't know how to process any of that and how to deal with it. And it just weighs on you until suicide becomes the only option you see. And that's, to me, the most heartbreaking thing about it all, because suicide just makes a bigger mess. It leaves family behind, it leaves children and wives behind that have to deal with the fact that now you're gone and they don't even understand why. 4 years ago, I went out to Montana and went out with a group called Homeward for Heroes, started up by Dan and Laura Reese, and it's an amazing organization. I've been blessed by tons of them. We got your Six and all kinds of other ones, and they all are phenomenal in their own way, every one of them. The thing that I love about Homeward for Heroes is they don't just take the soldiers out and have a good time with them, which that is important, that the vets get out there, the first responders get out there, and they make new commitments, new bonds with other guys that have experienced similar situations and they can relate. That is important. but it's also important that they actually do something of substance with that they learn how to deal with those issues and those struggles, rather than just get together, get drunk, and make new friends that they can call when they're struggling. You got to have tools in your bag to bring home to your family so that you can cope with your issues and function and have a higher quality of life. So Homeward for Heroes does that. Their focus isn't just on getting the guys out in the woods and showing them a good time. It's also on the family. They encourage you to bring your wife or your husband if the woman is the veteran in the group. Either way, they want the couples there together to work through their things, their issues. And a lot of times the wives, the spouses, learn for the first time how to understand and relate to their veteran, because vets, I love them all to death with all my heart, but we are a stubborn, rock-headed bunch that doesn't like to talk typically to anyone, especially someone who hasn't served, because we just don't feel like they're going to get us, they're going to understand. And that includes our wives and our children, who are supposed to be the most important people on earth to us. So it makes it very tough, especially for that spouse, to understand why their veteran can't relate to them, can't open up to them, can't tell them things. Well, then when you get into a group with other veterans, and you start working through these workbooks and you start talking about your issues, we call it demons in the fire, and you start opening up vet to vet with your spouse sitting right by your side, it opens up a whole new world for them. And for my wife and I, it was a total game changer. Sorry, I'm getting a little choked up, but it definitely helped save our marriage a little bit, because inadvertently through this and some other stuff along the way when I was still in, I figured out that life didn't have to be so much of a struggle, that there is a way to get through it. Everybody needs to find that one thing that they can grasp onto and draw their strength from. And for me, that ended up being Jesus Christ. I figured out about 10 years before I retired out that there's got to be a better way for me to handle things, to do things, to run my career in the military, my life outside of the military, and that's where I found my strength for all things. I would hope that that would end up being the same for everybody, but if not, you still need somewhere to draw that kind of strength from, that kind of stability in your life. And if you don't have that, you're gonna struggle, and you might end up turning towards the worst case scenario of suicide. So what we try to do at Homeward for Heroes is give you the tools and the skills you need, and share the things that work for us, and get everyone in the group to do the same, in hopes that you'll find something that will work for you, something that'll help you push through and be able to just have the quality of life that everyone deserves, especially, in my opinion, veterans who have fought so hard to preserve that way of life. You should have a good quality of it. So my wife and I kind of fell in love with the organization and what they represent and what they're trying to do, and we contacted them out there in Montana and have recently got a sister chapter going up here in Minnesota. And we had our first event this year, and it was amazing. I feel that although it had a few hiccups along the way, being our first time out, we did keep it small the first time out, just in case there were glitches in the works. And of course there was, but because of the size of our group and the flexibility of the people that were with us, I still think it went about as perfect as it could go for a first time out. We worked through any issues, we got everything handled. We even had a truck breakdown that we had to leave behind. We were able to deal with that, cross-loading gear and the driver and keeping the weekend going, and then eventually going back and getting that truck and getting it fixed and back up and running for them. And when it came to the downtime at camp. The conversations were awesome. They were amazing. I feel that they were definitely spirit-led. You can call it whatever you want, but guys opened up, hearts were poured out, things were shared that probably haven't been shared before, and it was an amazing experience. And I'm hoping that future events next summer go just as well, and hopefully on a bigger scale we get more vets out. I am looking forward to working with Minnesota vets as much as possible, but any vets, of course, I would never turn anyone away, but I'm a backyard ministry kind of guy. We got a lot of people right here in Itasca County, and I feel like we need to do something here in Itasca County and make it available, of course, to anyone, but pushing for our guys, our neighbors, our local heroes. These guys are the ones that we want to get out and show what Homeward Heroes is all about, so that we can honor them the same way they did us when they signed that dotted line and wrote that blank check for us.